are in a positive way for a change?
Relief is definitely the word. That's what I've been feeling from diplomats and politicians that I've been speaking to. And one of the things that they're really pointing out is that Hungary's departure as the obstructor-in-chief, that's what we expect the new Prime Minister to move away from, well, that also gives EU leaders a bit of headspace to try and think about other things and ask themselves, well, what's next? It's not that they don't have an inbox that is full of other issues, whether it comes to the energy crisis. On Friday, they're expected to meet also with Middle Eastern leaders. They're also trying to work out how to improve defences across this bloc. And one thing Cyprus, which is hosting this summit, really wants EU members to mull is what might a collective defence look like without NATO? And of course, that is something which has been on the minds of many other EU leaders, given the US seeming to, in many ways, turn its back on Europe, and Europe trying to kind of step up and say, OK, we can take care of ourselves. But that really, I think, still feels like a goal which is very far off. We know that in many ways, European countries are still very much reliant on the US.
Rosie Burchard for us from Cyprus tonight. Rosie, as always, thank you. In the United States, the battle over vaccines and immunizations, that battle has reached the Pentagon. The U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has dropped a requirement that soldiers be vaccinated against influenza, that they get the flu shot. And the U.S. Health Secretary, he faced grilling in Congress this week from lawmakers who blamed his department for growing measles outbreaks in the U.S. DW's Janelle Dumoulin looks at both sides of the battle over how Americans approach what is key to public health.
A brief sting, and it's over. It's vaccine day for baby Lennox, and for his big brother at last too. It goes quickly and routinely, just like the other checkups in this Michigan pediatric practice. But pediatricians like Molly O'Shea are noticing that keeping it that way has become more challenging.
There's a look now, there's a look that wasn't there before. And I'll say, what questions do you have? And sometimes parents will say, can we split them up? Do we really have to do them all at once? I wasn't asked those questions as much 2 years ago.
Dr. O'Shea only takes families who agree to vaccinate their children. So no one is asking her to stop giving shots to their children outright. But she worries about the changing world outside her practice. Last January, the U.S. government rewrote the childhood vaccine schedule. 6 vaccines were no longer routinely recommended. A federal judge eventually struck down the changes. The government's move, says O'Shea, undermines general willingness to vaccinate.
Children's parents who are already at times uncertain about the value of vaccine because they've been given information about vaccine safety that is often confusing or overblown or outpaces the risk of the vaccine compared to the risk of the disease. And when that information is coming from what has previously been a very trusted health source, the HHS director, it weighs even more significantly. And as a result, parents, I think, are coming now with really an unease, a dis-ease about vaccinating their kids.
In 2019, the World Health Organization named vaccine hesitancy as one of the top 10 threats to global health. Then came the pandemic, which turbocharged a distrust of vaccines. Since then, every childhood vaccine the U.S. Centers for Disease Control tracks, for measles, whooping cough, chickenpox, and others, has fallen below the 95% threshold that prevents outbreaks. The pandemic also boosted the fortunes of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who headed an advocacy group that challenged the safety and necessity of childhood vaccines. Kennedy eventually became the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. He arrived in office with the slogan, "Make America Healthy Again, Maha." To Rebecca Hardy, he was a welcome choice for the job.
We are supporters of Bobby Kennedy. I keep him in my nightly prayers.
Hardy is the co-founder of Texans for Vaccine Choice, which campaigns for parents' right to opt out of vaccinating their children. Her own children have also never gotten their shots.
I moved to Dallas in the late 90s to attend graduate school. I graduated with my speech language pathology degree. As I was setting up my practice, a pattern, I would say, quickly emerged with these young moms coming into my office with their very young children, many of them with vaguely similar stories of their child developing normally, and then they said something happened. And usually they said, after a shot visit with my pediatrician, my child changed.
That claim is a reference to autism. Last December, the WHO reviewed dozens of studies from 11 countries and reaffirmed what it said for decades. Childhood vaccines do not cause autism. But Hardy's movement has only grown. In 10 years, Texans for Vaccine Choice says it helped double the number of Texas families opting out of vaccinating their children and successfully lobbied for many bills, including a law last year making it easier than ever for parents to exempt their children from school vaccination requirements. Last year, measles came back, a quarter century after it had been declared eliminated. More than 2,000 cases were recorded in that year alone. 2 unvaccinated children died. Rebecca Hardy says the outbreaks don't change the argument.
In the experiment of liberty, which is America and certainly which is Texas, we need to be open to the idea that some people are gonna be sick, right? We don't get angry when a campus has a strep outbreak. That happens all the time though, right? But we only are conditioned to get angry if it's a disease for which there happens to be a vaccine.
In their own minds, these 2 women are in the same fight for the health of America's children. The difference is that they cannot agree on the means. Their work reflects the wider debate over what healthy means in America today. For the children caught up in these arguments, the stakes are as high as they can get.
You're watching DW News. Here's a reminder now of our top story. U.S. President Donald Trump says that he has ordered the U.S. Navy to shoot and kill any boats laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's latest remarks come as Iran says that it has captured 2 vessels that were traveling through the strait. This is DW News. I'll be back at the top of the hour with more world news. I hope to see you then.
Commemorate Anzac Day on ABC.
We honour all who have served in our name.
With a full day's coverage, starting with the dawn services in Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne, followed by the marches in your state capital. Then, national live coverage of services at Gallipoli and VA Bretonner.
I welcome you as we gather at this special place.
Anzac Day, all-day coverage on ABC TV, radio and iView.
A dashhound on the loose.
Kangaroo Island's got some pretty wild weather.
Snakes, eagles.
There's no way that she's going to survive.
We're exhausted from crying and searching.
How hard is it to find a sausage dog?
Spotted 500 days later.
That's when the chaos really started.
TV stations everywhere.
People got excited and got involved.
My heart, oh my gosh.
The inside story of the hunt for Valerie. Australian Story. Monday at 8 on ABC TV and ABC iView.
We left Cambodia when I was 10 years old, so I remember everything.
It doesn't get any higher than the High Court.
A Victorian prisoner is planning to challenge the law banning Australia's inmates from voting.
How dare they?
Does the government have the power to hold these people indefinitely?
My sense was we could win.
It's my life you're deciding on.
It changed the path of this country.
Sam, you've got the job. Psychic to me, the MC.
I don't really see you as an MC. I see you as a M-A-T-E. A mate.
The new season of Guy Montgomery's Guy Mont Spelling Bee, Wednesday, 8:35.
Australians love a punt, but in 40 years of adulthood, I've never had a flutter.
That seems like such a lot of money.
From the classics and the traditional to the online.
You have access to every racing track in Australia at the moment.
I'm going to find out.
I'll put 100 in.
Are we really the lucky country?
Totally crippled my life.
If you become a poker player, don't blame me.
Sean McAuliffe's Going for Broke, Tuesday, May 19 on ABC TV and ABC iView. The podcast ABC Business Daily breaks down the news moving markets, shaping industries and your money.
World energy markets remain in turmoil.
Carrington Clark unpacks what's happening in the world of finance, what it means and why it matters.
How vulnerable is the Australian economy?
And Alan Kohler goes deeper.
Will that solve housing affordability?
Big players, big decisions, and the lessons to be learned.
Welcome to ABC Business Daily.
Hear this and more great ABC podcasts on the ABC Listen app.
Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to the program. An Aussie farmer who visited Kenya over a decade ago says he returned to the country due to its hidden farming potential. He's successfully introduced Australian dryland farming techniques to land the Kenyans had written off. Here's reporter Bill Ormond with his story.
Osquest Farm is 50 kilometres south of Kenya's capital Nairobi in the county of Machakos. It borders a private nature conservation area and the neighbours are big, small and even striped. They're vastly different to those Stuart Barton grew up with in Gilgandra in regional New South Wales.
We've got a lot of wildlife around, and last night there was leopard just over there, and there's hyenas come in and drink it just in front of our house. Like I see cheetahs in the field, all those sort of things. It's unique and it is special, and I mean, it's incredible really.
Stuart moved here with his family in 2011, 2 years after his Nuffield scholarship to study grain growing in low rainfall environments brought him to Kenya. Smaller than New South Wales, 3/4 of the country is arid or semi-arid. Despite agriculture being Kenya's main economic driver, it's very vulnerable to climate shocks. It needs to import more food than it can produce, and there's a population of 58 million people to feed.
Obviously food was going to be an issue, and so that was, I guess, the genesis of the whole idea. It was like, there's going to be a need here in time, increasingly so.
Since arriving 14 years ago, the family has grown with 2 adopted sons, Johnny and Wiz. Although at the moment, the rest of the family, including wife Annie, who Stuart says has been integral here, are back in Australia.
And even our own kids, we're not in the same country, so there's certainly been a cost, and sometimes that's a little bit hard on the heart because I guess I'm the one that led us here.
He came here on a mission to show how Australia's dryland cropping techniques could work here. The Machakos region is 1.5 degrees from the equator, with temperatures ranging between 22 and 28 degrees. It's dry except for the long rains from March to May and the short rains from October to December. While an average of 500 millimetres of rain a year sounds good enough to crop in Australia, it hasn't been considered that way in Kenya.
These areas are not considered to be able to produce grain or beans or whatever food crops. They're purely grazing.
Stewart and his team are determined to change that.
We chose this area because it had very heavy soils, which once again, typically Kenyans would say are just virtually uncroppable. Our intention was, and it still is, to demonstrate and basically show the potential of what you can do in low rainfall areas.
Employing up to 400 people seasonally, operations are split into 3 separate businesses, growing beans and forage sorghum for market, producing and selling silage, and building fences for other farmers. The success of the farm has brought thousands of farmers, business people and politicians to tour the property.
We've had about 14